Thanks. I would say that besides what everybody normally goes for, which is being a radio DJ or presenter, I was also I got to know about being a compiler, music compiler, and obviously in a small station like that, you also learn other skills, which is around running a radio station. So I was able then to. I think that, well, as much as I didn't know that I'll end up in the music industry, because I was studying industrial sociology and law, so I was nowhere in the path of coming into the music industry. But I think that later got me to understand, like basically the relationship of radio and music. What goes on in terms of music compiling and stuff like that. But to tell the truth, for the first time, I got to know that there's something called a record label, because every time we see more about artists, or we see artists more than we know the people behind, artists and the marketing of the music. I think when a lot of people, probably even still today, whenever they see an artist, they never think that there's people behind. So when an artist is on a radio interview, or an artist is performing live on a TV show, maybe some people still assume that the artist got himself there, himself or herself, So as a music compiler, for the first time, just at varsity, it's only then that I got to kind of think again to say, yeah, man, I grew up seeing like Chico, and back in the day, artists used to basically label brand their cars, So Chico had his kumbi, we used to call it the Chico bus, So one grew up seeing Chico bus and all of that, but never thought that there's a record label behind Chico, So it was in that environment of campus radio that I got to discover that, hey, I never thought that there would be people behind the scenes. So that's how I got to, funny enough, the first label that I got to know of was EMI. Which later I got to apply for a job. And I think the nice story about that is I applied. I was applying for a holiday, job like a student, and I went for an interview in a suit and stuff like that. And I was told that I had the job, only to find that the job that I got was to go pack CDs at the warehouse. So I worked there Look, I was disappointed, but I felt like, well, maybe this is an opportunity to learn the industry, or the whole record company from the bottom, So I went and worked taking CDs, and there were night shifts as well. For instance, when a store or stores are looking for music, so that music has to be packed so that it can be shipped out, to different parts of the country. So that's what I was doing, collecting orders and all of that. But I didn't last long, because I felt that, okay, after some night shifts and stuff like that, I felt like, I think I've seen enough of that side of the industry. But I think, it will be the experience that I'm going to need in the future, especially with a degree. So I resigned, but I was happy to be in a position where I got to work on the floor, in a warehouse, packing CDs and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's a lesson I like to share with young people, to say that, nice. for example, with you guys in film and stuff like that, you'll be told that you start by making tea, you know? Even in ad agencies, you get told that you start by making tea. So yeah, so for me, coming into the music industry with everything that you've read in terms of my biography. So I started, you know, it's not like it was all glamour, you know, when I started. I started in a, you know, in a factory space. Look, I think I've been very outspoken about Biola, which is pay for play. For those who don't understand what Biola is, where artists and record companies are expected to pay compilers, and at some point they used to pay DJs just to get their music to be played. And I mean, let's not shy away. Metro FM has been the king of that, and we're going to be fighting it as the industry. We still continue fighting it, but we're going to be going full force now. So it is wrong. It's wrong because, I mean, for example, in some of those stations like your Metro FM, it said that they expect you to pay a minimum of 10,000 just for your song to be played, and it's between 10,000 and 100,000 per song, yeah, for one song. So I mean, you can imagine coming out of the township, you have the talent, and you are, after struggling to even get that money just to do your one song, which is not cheap, then you are expected, whereas at a government-owned or financed radio station, you know, you are expected, coming from a Khayelitsha or wherever, you know, you are expected to pay somebody who's already getting a salary, you know, you're expected to pay them a minimum of 10,000. Where are you going to get that 10,000? You don't even, just to get that money for taxi to get to that station just to deliver your music, you had to struggle. So, but these are part of the things that have been happening. I mean, Biola is not only just about people or you as an artist or record label being expected to pay to get your music played on radio, but there are people and record companies who pay compilers not to play your music.
You.
So I would pay a radio station not to play Thami's music, because I feel like his music is gonna be a threat to my music, or because Thami didn't want to sign to my label, I'm gonna make sure that it doesn't succeed. So these are the challenges that are faced by artists in South Africa, and that people are too shy to talk about. But also artists are guilty as well, because as we say, it's also artists who pay compilers, you know, to play their music. So artists are also not clean. It's the same way as when we talk about Biola and we're thinking that we're fighting for artists, it's also artists and some of those indie record labels and stuff whose staff go and tell the compilers that Vusi was talking about the fact that you guys are taking Biola. So it must not be made as if and as they normally say that in a crime situation, you know, where there's bribery, there's one who bribes and the one who accepts the bribe. Look, right now I will hope that you are quoting the CEO of Samro or whoever that you spoke to at Samro. I hope you're quoting them correctly, because if you're quoting them correctly, I will tell you that they're lying. Because remember, Samro deals with publishing and song, which is about songwriting, all right? So there's a publisher, there's a record company, there's a songwriter, all right? Samro deals with the publisher and the songwriter, not the record company, all right? So there's no way that there'll be money that goes to record companies from Samro. the Samro pays composers and publishers, or composers through their publishers. All right. So if Thami doesn't have a publisher, Thami would have registered at Samro as a composer direct. They will pay him direct. But if Thami has a music publisher, then the money will be paid to his music publisher. So there's no way that that money can go to a record label. There's no way. So it is in that light that I'm saying, I hope you are not misquoting, but if you correct, then that's, let's call it a lie. That's a blatant lie. What I know about mistakes that normally happen, maybe where a songwriter cannot be identified or stuff like that, is that there's a kitty within Samro where the unclaimed monies of any song that has been played and paid by record companies and anyone who pays royalties, whether it's a venue or a music festival organizer, stuff like that, or club, or honest DJ who understands that for every music that they play, they have to have a license with Samro, you know, because that music belongs to people who have spent money, and therefore they must get what is rightfully theirs. So basically that money becomes money that is unclaimed for, and it stays within Samro coffers until somebody can claim it. And if nobody claims it for years or stuff like that, I think Samro, besides that money obviously earns them interest, but Samro, they make certain decisions whether to kind of divide it and pay it amongst certain earners of that time, you know. But they also have a duty to go all out, you know, in verifying the composers, because unless it's a song that is what we would call a white label in which used to happen back in the day, where you have a record or a song that somebody picks up from the streets, and maybe they start playing it, but nobody knows who the composer is, who the record company is, who the publisher is, you know. But they need to find out. So there's many ways that they can do that, you know. If I'm surely sometimes if a song gets popular, that artist might end up performing. So if they check if has that artist ever performed and who was that artist, you know, they'll be able to find the correct information. Whether that artist composed or didn't compose, but they can ask that artist. If the song was submitted to radio correctly, but maybe there was like misspelling of composers, they can go back to the radio station and say which record company sampled you with this song, and they go back to that record company to say you didn't provide the correct information. Can you help us track the people who composed the song so that they can be paid, whether they've got a publisher or not. At the same time, if you have a publisher, then your publisher will make sure that they notify Samro up when the song is being played on radio through the every song released notification forms that you have to always send to Samro as a duty. And that's also for you as a composer to notify Samro about your song. The same way as if you were at Edgar's and they were playing your song, look at the time and go back to Samro and say, I was at Edgar's in Sentin at 1 p.m. and they were playing my song. Can you please follow up and check if they're gonna pay me for that, you know? So what I'm just saying is it's about information. Well, yeah, but let's say before that, I had already launched TKZ successfully, and other artists that included. There was the basic, for example, Jonina and Ray Piri also had a label called Killer Joe Records. And one of the ads was one of the groups that I launched. I think it was called D-Town. And there was Umchita as well, Bongane. I just forgot Bongane's surname, but he's now with SAFM as a presenter. So yeah, so look, I think in terms of launching an artist, for me, it starts from the fact that I think I always say I've been blessed. Besides that, I'm a musician myself, but I've been blessed to have an A&R ear, which is not something you can study. And at the same time, I have a marketing mind. So whenever I discover an artist, I at the time, either when I listen to their music or demos at that time, I normally, I kind of have a vision, you know, in my head on what I can do with that artist, where I can place that artist. Is there a gap in the market that I'm seeing, and all of that? Which, I mean, I would say that with me believing in myself, that has enabled me basically to have the record that I have, because almost every artist that I've launched, even if you look at all the artists that I've worked with, especially not the legends that I had a pleasure of working with at a later stage after their careers were made. But when you're talking your TKZs, your Mendoza, and all of those, your Toya Delazy, all of those kind of artists, when you look at WHP, Mendoza, all of them are not the same, you know, because I don't believe in copycats. And when I believe in an artist, I'll be controversial and say I don't believe in research. Because if I believed in research, I will tell you that a number of acts, including TKZ, I was told by big people in the industry, including, if you remember, Reliable Music Warehouse, which was the biggest retailer of black music. When I went there to play them the TKZ songs before we released them, and they told me that it was not going to work. So imagine if I had listened to that, then we would not be talking about TKZ and their achievement in the industry and how they influenced and changed the industry at the same time, you know. So when I listen to a product, it's about whether do I believe in it, and if I believe in it, I go all out. Obviously, I work with the artist in the studio, and like sometimes it's going through final touches of saying, okay, change this, let's do this there, and stuff like that. Sometimes I like, for example, with Mendoza, when we did his debut album, I gave him a brief to say, I want us to show people that, because people were dissing Kwaito at that time, as calling it music that is not creative, it's just about one word and stuff like that. And I said to Mendoza, okay, I want us to go in and I want us to do an album that's gonna have a message and have verses and at the same time make people dance. And, you know, I must say, Mendoza and Vusi Leeuw, who was the producer that I appointed to produce that album, they were able to deliver what I was looking for. I mean, that's why you had Zoitola Kanjani Hlele Khoneni. You know, you can name other songs, but when you think about Zoitola Kanjani Hlele Khoneni, you'd say probably it's one of the very first Kwaito songs that had verses. And at the same time, it had a message. At the same time, it made people dance. So, you know, we were able to do that. We made some impact because we changed the industry. And how many other kids wanted to be Mendozas, you know, and stuff like that. So each project is kind of different. I approach it in a different way, and based on that particular artist. I don't try and say copy so and so and stuff like that, you know. That's why, for example, again, when you think of WHP, he was rapping in Setswana. when at the time when the industry was full of, most of the successful stuff was people who were doing stuff in isiZulu, and we stuck with that. We stuck with Setswana. We pushed until we were able to break, and let's say, as they normally say, the rest is history. We later had Motswako and stuff like that. So each project I approach it on its individual, the way I see it individually, and the artist itself. And yeah, I mean, I've gone to an extent of naming an artist like Mandoza instead of, because when we did his solo album, there was Mdu Masilela and his name is Mdu Shabalala. We're not gonna go in to sell a product as Mdu in Kwaito when there was already a big artist like Mdu Masilela. There was gonna be confusion and all. So I had to come up with a name, and I called him Mandoza. The same way with WHP. Yes, originally was Jaba, and but I needed to say we need to make people understand the difference between what he was doing, which was local hip hop, because at that time local hip hop wasn't big, Venek, to say the people must not think that he's trying to be quite. Hence hip hop Pantsula, which was hip hop being the American youth culture. I mean, that has its own language, style, and music, and as you would know what hip hop is, and Ispanzula, which is South African youth culture, especially at the time, with its own language, style of dressing, music, and stuff like that. So that's why hip hop Panzula, which is the combination of the two, hip hop and South African youth, black youth culture, is Panzula. Yeah, look, I think number one, I will start by saying each and every area in terms of work, all right, has its own language. When you go to journalism, they've got words that they use. When you go to science, they've got their own language and all. In music, probably just like in soccer and stuff like that. When you find someone, all right, it's called discovering. It's almost, somebody can also say diamond and gold can argue that they were never discovered because they were sitting there underground shining. They were gonna be there anyway. So, and probably it becomes that thing that maybe other people end up wanting to be everything. As I said, that I started as a musician and as a producer, but I decided, let me do what I think I can do best, which is help, in shaping careers of people, and through what I discovered later, that it's a talent that I have. And so I could have easily said, you know what, I'll do my own music and do what I'm doing for other people, for myself or for my family and friends. So what I'm just saying is, maybe that's partly what the sad part about the music that we do, sort of the role that we play in the industry. People want to belittle it, as if we don't contribute anything, As I said, for me, for instance, as an A&R person, it's part of what I do is to produce. The one thing that, unfortunately, because of our political background and stuff like that, we've compromised our rights and never taken credit on stuff that we've done in terms of, for example, producing, because I came into an industry where some of the people in the past who were kind of known as A&R, or at that time talent scouts, some wanted to be bribed, you know, for you to get a recording deal. Some wanted to take a claim of composition in your own work, you know, for them to give you a record deal, you know. So when I came in from that conscience that compromised me, you know. Let me give you an example. When you take a song like by Kabelo, Mikiting, all right, which is also, other people know it as the Let the Good Times Roll, all right. That whole idea of bringing back that song was my idea. You know, I had the instrumental of that song because I wanted to redo it, all right. And when Kabelo, it was TKZ was going through challenges, and they had kind of parted at the time, and Kabelo, everybody didn't think that he was talented. Instead, people were saying Zwei and Tukulo were the most talented, and they were seeing Kabelo as if he was just lucky to be part of those. I gave him the instrumental. That was the first song when I said I'm gonna sign him, you know, because I recognized the talent that I believed he had, you know. I gave him that song. And I went back and got Mr. Godfrey Nzuza, you know, who's the original composer of that song. And I brought him into the studio and I said, I want to redo your song for this guy. And Godfrey at that time didn't know Kabelo, you know. And I said, and I brought him into studio. And I said, I want us though to get it the way, because the reason instead of just us reprogramming it, the reason I went and brought in the original person was because I wanted to get that original sound, not to try and fiddle in terms of how maybe I think it was played, you know. And Godfrey Nzuza went and brought the late Bones Brittle, you know, who was one of the respected keyboardist in the country. You know, he used to play the keys for Hotline, you know, PJ Powers. So Godfrey brought him in, and he brought the original GX7 Yamaha keyboard that was used in the 80s when they recorded that song the very first time, you know. And that's how we got the original sound. And for the vocal, the late Pra Ali Cat was also still alive. And I said to Pra Godfrey, can we bring Pra Ali? Where is he? And he said, no, he's still there. He stays in Tembisa. I said, can we please get him to the studio? We paid for him to come to the studio to redo the vocals. And, you know, and Godfrey, not Godfrey Nzuza, Godfrey, popularly known as Goofy, was the head producer of the project, you know, then started working on everything. So what I'm just saying is, if you know music and what producing is, then you will know that Vusi Leeuw was a producer or co-producer of that song. But if you can go and look at those credits, Vusi Leeuw didn't even take the credit. So when people start saying that person didn't do anything for me or he didn't discover me, there's so much that we can tell for me, on each artist that I worked with, on how I not only found them, but maybe their music was not in a direction that people will understand, or people will, or can be commercialized. That then through my small brain, I was able to bring back or to bring things or make comments on what needs to be done before people can hear that song. To make it the song that everybody at the end of the day starts saying, wow, that's a great song, you know? So some of us compromise royalties, you know, for composing. I mean, there's a song, for example, called Mafikeng by WHP. I composed that song, you know, and then put together everyone in terms of production, and I produced that song, you know. But I never go around saying, hey, I'm also a producer, songwriter, and stuff like that, you know. So because of the fact that I didn't want I wanted to fight the myth that makes people think that everything, when somebody works with you, you got to take something from them, even if you don't deserve it, or which is almost like a bribery, for you to open up the doors for people. It's the same way as I'll put down some facts and say the same way as other men expect women to sleep with them for them to do either produce their music or promote their music or give them a chance in the industry. Okay, Summit is, as you said, it's a South African Music Industry Council. It's a body that was partly encouraged by our current government to say that the South African music industry, especially even from the artist point, we need to speak with one voice. There needs to be unity. And it's important because when you go into any other business, for example, if you go to corporates, or like you've got, for example, like organization like BASA and BUSA, which is Black Business South Africa, So each and every area in business has its own collective organizations where people talk with one voice or they represent their particular industry. And the challenge with the music industry was the fact that there was no such a structure, where people can talk in unity. So within SAMIC, you have various bodies. You have, for example, you have organizations like your ECHO, which is Association of Independent Record Companies. You've got associations like RISA, which is the Recording Industry of South Africa, which is made up of both majors and major record labels and independent South African record companies. ECHO is made up only of South African independent record companies. You've got publishers, various types of publishers, from Sambro to Capasso to, you also have, like, let's say, collecting bodies, including your SAMPRA. You have unions, musicians unions like I'm just forgetting the name.
TUMSA? Is it TUMSA?
No, TUMSA is not yet a member. AISA.
Okay.
AISA, led by Hepta. So basically, and you also have women organizations in the music industry, like Sisterhood, led by their president, Usisnozi. So basically, under SAMIC, you can say it's a legitimate music industry body.